of RWE Supply and Trading. RWE Supply and Trading is a leading European energy trading house and an active player on the global wholesale markets of energy and energy-related raw materials in both their physical and or derivative forms. And Ralf has been with RWE for a while now. He's the IT infrastructure and provider management for RWE Supply and Trading, and he is going to talk about his experience with cloud security challenges and how Tufin helped address some of his challenges. And if you want to read more about it, there is also an attachment with the PDF success story for RWE, and you're welcome to download that during or after the webinar. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ralf.
Yeah, thank you, Maya, and thanks a lot for the invitation. I'm happy to share our experience in our cloud migration project. So yeah, hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are listening. I will give you a brief overview of what we at RWE Supply and Trading are doing within the cloud and on the on-premise part. So I'm working as a network operation expert here. So that means that our team is setting up the controls that are needed to achieve the goals Maurice already has described here. So I will give you a technical insight of what we are doing here. Yeah, short agenda. Yeah, just for the books, you'll see what will come up now. So I will give you a short introduction about RWE Supply and Trading. So supply and trading means we are trading goods here and energy. So we have the largest trading floor in Europe. We are a center of excellence. We have around 1,300 employees in 37 countries. And we have networks in Europe, Asia, and in the USA. So more or less, we have a 24/7 approach here. We can trade all the times. What are we trading? We are trading power, gas, coal, oil, CO2 certificates, liquid and solid biofuels, and metals. And for this, we have approximately 1,200 on-premise servers currently and around 400 AWS instances. And we manage 20 firewall clusters on-premise. So what is our motivation? So our West operates approximately 200 different applications that support our very agile business. And our IT senior management has given out the strategy to go cloud first for new applications and also to check and move existing applications into the cloud if feasible. The increasing cloud usage has for us the advantage that we have a very good scalability, that it is really pretty easy to use, and that we have a very high agility, what is normally needed in the trading business. On the other hand, we need to get proper security controls in place to guarantee that we have a good security level and a good protection for the data stored in the cloud. And we also need to protect our on-premise environments. For the technical part, we have a direct connection to the AWS cloud, and this direct connection is routed over an on-premise next generation firewall. So the as-is situation here is that we are using Tufin Secure Track and also Tufin Secure Change for the on-premise parts with manual processes. And now when moving into the cloud, we now see that there is a very high number of requests to set up new security rules. This is very difficult to handle not only for our team, for the network operation guys or the implementers. It's also pretty hard for the security officers because they need to approve these changes. Another challenge is that the security settings in the cloud are currently not integrated in our processes. And we now see also that it is very difficult to find a common language between the application owners, the security operational guys and also the network guys. So in the on-premise time, it was no problem. If someone needed a server, it needed around 4 months until everything was set up. And in this time, it was easy to set up 3, 4, or 5 meetings with all the groups to find out what needed to be implemented. Yeah, so our vision is that we have a secure change management process in place that includes a full end-to-end application view using detailed communication matrices. This means that we really have the end-to-end view from the instance towards the destination. Means that we cover these AWS security groups, the firewalls, so that we really see in the end what is happening there. And then we would like to have the right level of detail and usability for the different groups. Means our application developers or application owners, they have only an application-based view on all rules. And they do not need to know IP addresses, protocol, and ports. They just need to know I have to access a RWE cluster, and that's it. And the rest is then with us. And the operational and strategic security analyst can easily assess the risk. And our network guys need only implement special requests manually, and standard requests shall be deployed automatically. And all this is needed with one solution for our on-premise stuff and for the cloud environments. And last but not least, everything must be fully auditable. So we need to know who changed what and when. And that covers the security groups bound to an instance and also the normal access rules for the on-premise stuff. Yeah, so our strategic roadmap is how we would like to achieve this is that Secure App becomes our cockpit for all the teams for everything related to the communication matrices. So means our developers or application owners are modeling and setting up the communication metrics in Secure App. They can monitor if a communication is granted or blocked. They get a green or red bubble for that. And Secure App is now feeding all this information directly into Secure Change. This means that Secure Change is becoming a middleware here between Secure App and Secure Track. So the only thing that is done there is the access design. Then we can directly check the risk assessment, all on the basis of the Unified Security Policy, which we also highly recommend to set up properly because it's really helpful. And Secure Change shall automate the complete deployment wherever possible. And Secure Track is then the tool that has already read access to all our AWS VPCs. So it can populate the applications within Secure App automatically, and we can verify the compliance requirements for the end-to-end visibility and for a full audit trail. Yeah, this is a short overview how you model your communication metrics in Secure App. I think everyone who is using that knows how it looks like. A developer goes in, gets his application, gets access to the application, and then he can set up his servers and connect them to already set it up standard access rules. In best case, for example, we know now all the file servers, all the RWE clusters, we know how they get their mail servers, their internet access, and all that stuff, and they just need to go into their cockpit, click the new button, connect it to an application, check, for example, that they need internet, and then they connect it to the internet application, and they can populate then the source side just with their servers. So pretty easy to use. So they really do not have to know about server names, ports, IP addresses anymore. Another nice thing is that our developers can model their communication metrics also for the east-west traffic within AWS. So Secure Track is reading the VPC flow logs, and then they can see to which different instances a server is talking there, and with a right click they can say, okay, that's a valid communication, I want to model that in my cockpit, and then it's automatically put in there. So the goal is that we have at the end a full overview of the application metrics for an application, and this is then really a live documentation for us. Yeah, the other part I already referred to is the unified security policy. This one is, from my point of view, really a basis or a foundation for all these security changes, because you are defining your zones by purpose. You can set up granular matrices here between these zones, so it's really a one hard time work, but it is definitely resulting in a faster business as usual process. And you can automate the risk assessment, so this means you have a much better visibility, and we will also go the next step that we will set up automatic approvals for risks that are only low risk. So this all will definitely help us to set up our changes faster, and for the security guys, they can now estimate the risk pretty fast. Yeah, also the developers, the developers or application owners can have a look on these risk assessments, so they can directly see, okay, the risk assessment for communication is high, and they see why it is high, and so they can go there, and perhaps they have another approach, another possibility to use to circumvent the high risk. And they could also estimate if there is a high risk in there, that the approval process could be a little bit longer. So what achievements do we have so far? So the support for the AWS agility is done through standardization and automation. Means, for example, on our on-premise firewalls, the rule sets now match the application interfaces we have set up in Secure App. So all the rules are set up on the destination service that is provided by an application, and every application that wants to connect to it is just put into the source field of this rule. This is shortening the timeline for changes. When we began the move to the cloud, we needed around 2 days for change, for a normal change, and now it can be done within 6 hours. And also the rework of security change implementations is drastically decreased. We have nearly no reopened tickets anymore. So that's the reason, or I think the reason is because we have our standard rules and we just adding the source addresses. So if a rule is working for 3 other applications, the fourth will also work. Another point we have experienced now is that we definitely have improved the communication between our application owners, our security, and the network teams through the common basis in Secure App. Because now the application owner knows, okay, I want to connect to a specific application, and everyone else knows the application because it is already set up. It's checked already, and so everyone is fine if this communication is done then, because you really cannot afford to set up meetings for every application. And we have a much more improved visibility for all teams, including our auditors. So we have normally every 2 years an audit here, but in the last 3 years, I think we had a yearly audit. So and these auditors are also pretty happy. So we have here a real-time documentation for our applications now. So we have the communication matrices and all dependencies in there, and this is a live documentation. So it's nothing that is 3 or 4 years old. And we now also see the AWS security groups and the violations that are bound to the USP. So we can generate reports here and afterwards check which instance is doing what and why. Yeah, and we are currently working closely together with Tufin to fulfill all our vision ideas here, and that's done within the scope of a development partnership, which is also working pretty well. So what's next? So we want to enhance the agility support even more. So means we need to automate our change approval decisions through the USP. So every low-risk change will be approved automatically. We want to fully automate the deployment of our firewall rules through Tufin Orchestration Suite. So at least for our standard rules, which are around 100 rules. And yeah, we also want to deploy our AWS security group changes through Tufin orchestration suite, which is already supported but not implemented in our setup yet. And for the intra AWS traffic, we want to utilize AWS tags instead of IP addresses. So for our virtual firewalls, we want to go the approach to police the traffic by tags. Yeah, and another point which is also pretty important is we want to introduce more features for the application owners, because yeah, we want to lure them into secure app. So the more benefits they see, the better they work with it. So currently every application owner is happy so far, but we want to get them even more happier so that they do everything related to their communication is done via secure app. So for this we will show them how the application path discovery works, that they just put in a source and a destination server, and then they can check for a few days and see which applications are used for it. And also the introduction of the connectivity map, where they can easily see and click their communications together. That all shall help. Yeah, so the conclusion, what have we learned in the last yeah, rough 1 year? So you should really expect a very high agility. So servers are created and deleted in an eye blink. So when we started, it was a pretty yeah, often case that someone called me and told me, oh, I have deleted all my servers, but I have created everything new. So please give me the same access rights. Yeah, and then you begin to sweat. Yeah, another point is create a common understanding between the different infrastructure groups. So because you cannot afford to have a meeting with all groups to introduce a new application, because these applications are also set up within minutes. And standardize your access rules. So we are now modeling our firewall rules on the basis of secure application interfaces, as I already said before. And another point that is, from my point of view, crucial is create a general communication matrix as the basis of all communications and feed it into the USP. Yeah, last but not least, make a secure app to your cockpit for all communication matrices for all infrastructure teams. Yeah, so that's what we have learned on our side here. Yeah, so then thank you very much, and I think we have some time left for questions then.
Yes, we do. Ralf, thank you so much for this eye-opening session. It's great to hear about, you know, what you're doing, and to have you share your experience is really priceless. So thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your experience. And if you have questions for Ralf, now is the time to click the questions button and type in your questions, and we're going to get to those. So let's start with a few of the questions that we have. I think there's a question here for Maurice. Maurice?
Yeah, I can look at a couple of these here. We've got one
Okay.
question that talks about the amount of data. I think the question has to do with the humongous amount of apps that we're moving into the cloud. You know, is there a scalable way to protect all that data? And it's a great question. And I look at it from a couple of different perspectives. I mean, first of all, you need to make sure that employees are moving from these unsanctioned cloud services to a sanctioned IT service provider. By moving from an unsanctioned to a sanctioned, one, you're going to greatly reduce your cloud landscape and where that data is being stored. You're going to be able to then federate those sanctioned services back to your Active Directory or your access control system, so that you're now going to have some access control over that data, whereas before in an unsanctioned world, as we talked about earlier, when the employee leaves the company, you know, they still have their box and Dropbox account, and they're taking your intellectual property with them. So moving into a sanctioned environment is one way to start to scale back in terms of where all that data is located and the amount of data that has to be protected. But secondly, I'm also going to recommend that having a data loss prevention tool. Many CASBs, whether it's SkyHigh or even I think Symantec now has a CASB solution with Blue Coat, they can integrate any of your current data loss prevention tools that you may already have. But even if you don't own a DLP tool, these CASBs like SkyHigh can actually provide you DLP capabilities so that you can now monitor the data that's being uploaded and downloaded from all of your cloud service providers. And by monitoring that data, you can put in protection policies based on data classification or keywords or key extensions so that you can start protecting the type of data that's either leaving your network and or coming into your organization. So having a DLP tool is absolutely important. I can go with another question, or do we want want someone else to answer another one?
No. Let's go to another question.
Okay. Okay. Well, let me take another one. There was a question. Let me see here that had to do with AWS and had to do with vulnerability assessments and penetration testing. You know, how can we validate that our data is actually secure in the cloud? And let's just take AWS as an example. So with AWS, one, you can on your own absolutely conduct vulnerability testing and penetration tests on your network. Now, of course, before you run those tests, you're going to want to contact your cloud service provider, AWS, and in many cases, they have a vulnerability penetration testing request form so that they know that when they see these various, pen tests taking place, they understand that you're completing those tests versus some type of malicious outsider. So one, you can conduct your own external penetration test or simulated vulnerability scan. Second, in some cases, I know with Amazon, they've got something called Amazon Inspector. And Amazon Inspector is their own internal security vulnerability assessment service. And some individuals will pay for the use of Amazon Inspector to help them, one, identify any external security vulnerabilities and help them improve their security and compliance assessment for each of their applications that may be deployed on Amazon. So, check to see if your cloud service provider has their own vulnerability assessment tools, and if they don't, in many cases, you can perform your own external penetration testing.
Thank you, Maurice. Maybe we can now go into one of the questions here that was directed for Ralf. Ralf, and there are a few questions for you. One of them is, will AWS allow to learn topology rules from their security groups? I'm guessing this has to do with access rights and what visibility you have with AWS.
Yeah. So for us, it's the point that we have visibility into the security groups. So we got a report from Tufin. So Tufin has full read access to our AWS VPCs. to all VPCs we have there. And over these, they get the information about the security groups, also the VPC flow logs. And for these, we have generated a report within our Tufin instance, where we get a full overview of all instances with all IP addresses, with all interfaces, and also with the violations in regards to the USP. So yes, you get the full view into AWS. And I think another question around the topology is also if it is supported yet. So I think for direct AWS Connect, the support will come. So we definitely have seen it in our setup together with Tufin. So but that's perhaps then a question for Amnon. So nothing I could answer here completely. And also there's one question around hardening of RWE servers. So within RWE, we have guidelines how you have to harden your servers, but that's in regard to the purpose of the server and to the zones where they are located, and therefore it does not make much sense to tell about something like this, because these guidelines are given to everyone who is setting up a server, and these need to be fulfilled. This is also part of our audits here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ralf and Maurice. Thank you for answering the questions, and thank you for sharing your insight and your experience with our audience today. Thank you to all of you who participated today. I think this was a very interesting session, and I hope you agree. If you want to read more about RWE, there is a PDF that is available as an attachment, and you can download that and read it. Read all the full details of the RWE success story. And if you have other questions, you can feel free to contact us and let us know what your questions are, and we'll try to answer those. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Maurice. This was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite, and look forward to doing it again.
That's great. And thank you, Ralf. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks for sharing all the details about your deployment.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invitation. It was a pleasure for me.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Of course, the recorded session will also be available on the Tufin website and the Bright Talk channel. Thanks again, and we'll see you on our next webinar.